kidding. Janie Rowe. We're going through how to pronounce names here earlier, but Janie Rowe and Bella Browse for a session. And I'm just going to hand it off to you guys so I don't make a mess of it. And I'm going to take careful notes and see if I can ask a very good question at the end of your session. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kurt. I'm going to just share our screen. So we've got a bit of a slideshow.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Bella, and this is Janie. We're part of a multi-agency partnership and neurodiverse team that seeks to co-create communities where every human is valued and connected to self, others, and the world around them. First, we would like to take a moment to ground ourselves. Our work in our lives takes place on the ancestral and stolen lands of the Hunkaminam and Squamish speaking peoples. We wholeheartedly believe that reconciliation asks us to unlearn a lot of the dominant logics that have served to separate, divide, exclude, exploit, and harm. That includes the logic of disability, itself a colonial construct, which for far too long has turned care and help into an instrument of power and control. Moving towards reconciliation and equality requires more than new practices like land honorings. It requires shifting our mental models and power structures. In other words, it requires a complete transformation. We would like to start with our set of principles that guide our work. This is not an exhaustive list. We are all equal and wonderfully different and deserve to live full, flourishing lives with meaning and purpose. Love, belonging, and purpose are as essential as food, shelter, and safety. We all hold biases and make assumptions that are only free when each of us lives free of prejudice and oppression. We are committed to co-creating with people that are most affected by the solutions we are offering, thus are committed to meaningful inclusion, which is rooted in relationships of respect and reciprocity, and shared power. We can all learn and grow, which requires us to lean into each other, value feedback, and reflect on which perspectives and voices are being centered and missing.
So for us, it's challenging to condense 8 years of research and development into 10 minutes, but we're going to do our best. And just to note that our work is more than about process. It's about taking a whole systems approach to changing our mental models, systems, and culture. But for the purpose of today, we're really going to focus on our design process and take you through all of these stages of developing Curaco and to share some of our learnings with you all. And so we're going to take you from research to synthesis, to ideation, prototyping, and then into implementation. So about 8 years ago, we also started with this problem statement of what does social isolation and loneliness look like? Except we wondered what this might look like for folks living with a cognitive disability. So we moved into this social housing complex in Burnaby for about 3 months and met as many people as we could. Ethnography lets us get to know people in their context, to see the disconnect between what people say and what the people do. We met over 100 folks from newcomers to small business owners. Folks like Faye, who were quite connected, had lots of people in their life, and yet felt a sense of deep loneliness and isolation. Faye talked about how 1986 was the best year of her life. It was the year Expo came to Vancouver, a world fair that brought novelty, jobs, and opportunities to connect with community. Faye wasn't alone. We heard how so many people were feeling a loss of meaningful connection and weren't sure how to change this. These insights challenged our assumptions, and we reframed the problem. People were experiencing a special type of isolation, a lack of exposure to new experiences, places, people, ways to express themselves, build new relationships, and narratives that shaped a sense of self. So we took our research and synthesized what we learned and went through a process of segmentation, taking the constructs we understood to support connection and flourishing and mapping folks against these to see what new groupings emerged. During segmentation, we stay away from how the system typically categorizes people around demographics like age, gender, income levels. And we look at things like a sense of purpose against levels of optimism, or feeling a sense of belonging against levels of agency, to really discover different kinds of clusters that open up space to generate ideas of what could be. So for ideation, we start with the outcomes we're wanting. We research what's already out there, looking for points of inspiration, and we go through a series of brainstorming exercises, alternating between working alone and with a team to avoid becoming an echo chamber for each other. In our project, we came up with 11 different prototypes, ideas to tackle different areas of our problem statement, understanding that no one solution can work for everyone or solve everything. For prototyping, we selected one to test out, Kudos, which was actually the predecessor of Curco. It was a platform connecting people with and without disabilities over shared passions through experiences. In this phase, we paper prototyped everything, using a paper catalog to represent a digital platform, and people to serve as functions of a mobile app like notifications and reminders. This was also that we could test our assumptions and see if this was a viable solution that had desirability and impact. Then we moved into implementation, codifying practices and spreading values to move it up into a real world solution. We developed a theory of change, a set of new roles, practices, an evaluation framework, and we ran our first prototype of Kudos for 7 years up until the pandemic hit. All throughout, and what is core to our development process, is a commitment to co-design and co-production. During the design process, constantly checking our assumptions and then checking them again, keeping what is being developed grounded in the perspectives of the people most impacted and ensuring that we're not replicating existing oppressive dominant systems. Over the years, we've developed a number of prototypes, each tackling a different part of our problem statement around connection, exposure, novelty, and belonging. The pandemic served as an opportunity to bring them all together in a harmonized new platform, now called Curco.
So what is Curco? With Curco, our purpose is to spark more moments of meaningful connection, rooted in relational equality, because we believe a flourishing life isn't a fixed destination, so much as a process of coming to know ourselves, each other, and the people, plants, animals, culture, and big ideas around us. Curco is an interactive platform of connection, where people engage with each other and form bonds over their shared interests and life experiences. Curco is a much needed platform for adults and youth who struggle with anxiety, isolation, social skills, disability, and many others, all of which can make it hard to get out into the community and engage. Curco is also co-produced by a series of new roles, ones like mine. I'm a youth peer coach, and I help run experiences as a moderator and host my own experiences like Hockey Hangout. When I joined the team, it gave me the opportunity to help in a way I've never been able to before. By being hands-on and adjusting situations to make them more accessible for our community made me feel like I was being a part of the greater goal, to make people feel included and not forgotten. To make an experience accessible for all takes work. For example, I run a hockey experience each week where we sit and chat about hockey, and we like to try out new things every so often. I wanted to try playing with the Zoom whiteboard and play Pictionary with the group, but soon realized that one of our participants is visually impaired and wasn't able to use it. What did we do? We had her use her body like charades instead. In a situation like that, it can be hard to be inclusive when not everyone has the same access needs. But to lead with compassion and flexibility is a good start. Being accessible should mean that nobody is excluded from doing or using something, and they should be able to do so with reasonable and an equal amount of effort as those without a disability. Small steps forward from all of us can add up, like bringing more awareness to the issue and highlighting areas of improvement to companies and services. All of these steps forward, no matter how small, can help in moving us towards that more accessible world.
So what does accessibility have to do with isolation and loneliness? Well, we're trying to get at the underlying factors of what leads to loneliness and isolation. Access is a significant factor, and those living with a disability encounter this barrier to experiencing moments of connection daily. Disability intersects and impacts everyone. And according to recent literature, it is the longest enduring internalized bias. At our current rate, it will take 200 years to get to neutrality. 200 more years of isolation, of living life on the margins. Tackling accessibility also tackles isolation, a feeling that many more of us can relate to since the pandemic. We built Curco as a way to create the space to encounter people not like ourselves, a heterotopia where people can meaningfully connect, deepen understanding for meaning and purpose. It takes a whole systems approach to shifting the way we think, what we value, how we engage and interact with each other, and what we do at a practice and policy level to change our culture to really address isolation. And that's how we've designed Curco, as an ecosystem that works across individuals, communities, to create the cultural conditions for people to experience more of these moments of connection. To close, we just want to share a few of our top learnings, which is, to start with a set of values and principles and using those as anchors, checking assumptions and biases, not jumping to solutions, co-creating with community members along the entire development and implementation continuum, thinking of the interactions, roles, and structures that enable this. Don't be afraid to be wrong or change your problem statement. Build on what is already there, collaborate, and consider how your solution is working across systems for impact. And most importantly, that systems change takes commitment and time. We're here 8 years later and still working at it.
Thank you very much for having us. We are excited to see what amazing solutions you come up with and would love to chat more. So please reach out to us. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you so much, guys. If you wouldn't mind, stop sharing your presentation. Fantastic. You know what, should we just open it up to some questions? Are there any questions out there that anybody would like to pose? I think the thing that really kind of popped out to me was accessibility and access in this 200-year timeline. That just kind of like blows my mind. What is the way to speed that up? Is there a way to speed this up? What can we do to kind of like maybe drop a year or two off that 200-year timeline? Is there anything you can help us to short circuit this?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think for us, it was eye-opening for us too. It was recent literature that was released and by Tessa Charlesworth. And so for us, it was like, how do you work across the systems? So creating a solution that isn't just at the individual level or at the community level or at an organizational level or at a policy level, but something that works across those to really start shifting these mental models that we hold, these logics that we operate from in order to shift the culture around some of these pieces. And so for us, I think we're trying to work at those multiple levels. And that's why we develop not just one prototype, but we've developed several other kind of prototypes alongside of it. Because for us, it's like also being aware that like, oh, this isn't going to work for everybody. This isn't the thing that is going to solve everything. It's a constellation of interactions, a constellation of solutions that will help get at that. And so for us, we're trying to raise and bring people into that community to understand that accessibility isn't just being able to create a screen that has a really nice user interface. It is about thinking, how do people access conversations, places, people, relationships, employment, all of those kinds of things that then really underline isolation and loneliness.
Very, very cool. You know what? There's one question that came through, but I think we're at time, Michelle. Am I right?
Yeah, great question in the chat. If you two are able to hang on, that'd be awesome. And you can just respond via chat if that works, just to give